Super Mario Odyssey, along with Breath of the Wild, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, apparently, is one of the biggest games on the Switch. Why is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe so cronkin' popular? Sheesh. And seeing as Mario Odyssey is one of the biggest games on the Switch, there have been a lot of questions about what comes next for Mario. Are we getting Super Mario Odyssey DLC? Is there going to be a Super Mario Odyssey 2? Will Mario have to wait until the next Nintendo system? Could there even be a Super Mario Galaxy 3? Probably not, but I don't want people to unsubscribe if I say no, because I'm a sellout. But based on everything that's happened with the Switch up to this point, all that's been announced, and even all that hasn't been announced, I think one option is appearing more and more likely. Hello all 1,710 of you, I'm Redkwan, and this is why I think Super Mario Odyssey 2 is going to happen. So first of all, let's talk about Mario Odyssey DLC. It's not happening. This game was released almost 2 years ago, and Nintendo's DLC up to this point has been at least announced within a few months, pretty much every time. I'm pretty darn sure no Nintendo game that's gotten DLC has gone even close to this long before even having it announced. At this point, I don't think people even really care about getting DLC for this game anymore. It's just been too long. But the thing is, DLC would have made a ton of sense. Mario Odyssey sold really, really well, and it would have been so easy to just add in some new worlds and costumes for the game. I know they did add in Luigi's Balloon World, but that doesn't really count. I'm talking about full-on, more game to play type of DLC, not just go fetch a balloon for your old pal Luigi. That's kinda lame. Zelda Breath of the Wild even got DLC, and that didn't even make sense. They had to basically add in a whole new side story type of deal, while Mario Odyssey would have only needed to add in a few worlds and some costumes. It really should have been pretty easy. But they didn't, and I think the fact that they didn't, even though it would have probably been very successful and would have been pretty easy to do, especially with all the possibilities a game like Odyssey has for worlds. And you know, all the amazing ideas I graciously provided. Box Kingdom? So if Mario Odyssey DLC isn't happening, which it's not, why didn't Nintendo make any? I think the only reason that makes sense would be if they wanted to make a new Mario game with the ideas instead of DLC, and they know that'll make them a ton of money. Now, I think a new Mario game on the Switch is pretty much a guarantee because of that. With a game that succeeded in pretty much every way, I don't think there's any chance Nintendo would just let it be. Either they would add in some sort of DLC, or they would make another. There isn't any DLC, so I think that must mean there's going to be another Mario game on the Switch. When you add on to all this, the fact that video game consoles are lasting longer than they used to, and the fact that Nintendo has said they want the Switch to last like 7 to 10 years, 2 Mario games on the same system would actually make a lot of sense. Now I realize that this has only happened one other time with the Galaxy games on the Wii, but I do think there's a lot more of a reason to this time. First of all, unless I'm looking on some sketchy sites, Mario Odyssey is the best-selling 3D Mario game of all time now, with number 2 being the original Galaxy. 3D Mario games sell well, but they never used to be the biggest sellers on a system. Mario Odyssey is one of those types of games, just like Galaxy was. A Mario Odyssey 2 would make a boatload of money, and would make a lot more sense than past Mario sequels would have. Call me crazy, but I think if Nintendo made a game in its system's launch year that sold over 14 million copies, the second best-selling game on the system after, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, apparently, and this system was an extremely successful system that they planned on keeping around for almost a decade, and this game just so happened to be reviewed almost perfectly by almost everybody, is in the most iconic video game series of all time, and a sequel could be made relatively easily, using the same engine and just making a new story and new worlds, they would probably make another one. It still is a little bit of a question whether Nintendo would make a direct sequel like they did with Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for Odyssey, whether they would make a brand new type of 3D Mario, or whether they would make a sequel to a past Mario game like a Galaxy 3, or, and I don't even want to go here, but, new Super Mario Bros. Switch? Ugh! I don't think any of these is impossible, but I think Mario Galaxy 2 is by far the most likely. First of all, Odyssey is the best-selling 3D Mario of all time, and is among the best received both critically and by fans, although pretty much all of them are pretty popular there too. And people want more Odyssey. Obviously, some people want a new type of Mario game, or want an old type like Sunshine or Galaxy to come back, and I might actually be in that group too. I don't want to play something too similar to a game I've already played, but I think the vast majority of people would rather get another Odyssey game. There are a ton of places that Odyssey has yet to go, and I think that a sequel that had crazy new worlds, a new story, and some new interesting mechanics, maybe even borrowing some stuff from past games like Galaxy, would be able to go in a lot of different directions. A Galaxy 3 might not be out of the question, but because Odyssey sold better and hasn't been explored as much yet, I think Odyssey 2 is a much more likely choice. A new type of Mario may also be possible, but I think if Nintendo's making another game on the Switch, it's more likely they'll do what they did for the Wii and make a sequel to Odyssey, especially since there's a lot left to do with the concept. As for new Super Mario Bros., who knows? I think the series might have finally run its course. But it'll still probably happen because it refuses to die. But one piece of evidence that I think might make Mario Odyssey a lot more likely is the fact that Breath of the Wild 2 is happening. Nintendo announced a sequel to Zelda Breath of the Wild at E3, and from the looks of it, it's going to be using the same assets for the next game. Zelda did a similar thing with Majora's Mask, but something like this is still pretty rare. If Nintendo's making an asset reusing sequel to Breath of the Wild, I think that makes Mario Odyssey 2 look a lot more likely. Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey have followed similar paths up to this point, both being seen as fresh directions for their series, selling incredibly well, and being very well received. Both came out back in 2017, the Switch's first year, drawing a lot of connections even back then, and both are seen as some of the Switch's biggest games even now. These are the two series Nintendo set out to breathe new life into with the Switch, and I think it would make sense that what happens with one series can say a lot about what happens with the other. Zelda is getting a sequel on the Switch, and I think that's a pretty good indication that Mario will too. Nintendo has seemed to put a greater focus on their few big series with the Switch, leaving some of their smaller series to seem less prominent on the console. That honestly might not be a good thing, but I think that also makes another Mario game seem more likely to happen. Mario Odyssey sold incredibly well and was incredibly well received. It came out early in the life of the Switch, which is set to last for a good while. Breath of the Wild, the game that's followed a similar journey so far, is getting a sequel, and there are a ton of possibilities for a new game. I think it only makes sense that Super Mario Odyssey 2 is going to happen. Or at least that's what I like to tell myself. Well, I'm Redkwan. How do you feel about Super Mario Odyssey 2? Did I spend 8 minutes talking about something everyone already agrees on? Probably, because if you haven't realized by now, I legitimately have no idea what I'm doing. I'm what we call a fraud. Anyways, I'm Redkwan, thank you all for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all later. Goodbye.